I won $20,000 in this $500 buy-in fantasy football draft last season, but what makes it special is I made a video the day after the draft ended of our overall thoughts on the team and the draft strategy that we had in this draft in particular. So let's look back a year later now and figure out, okay, what was the draft strategy that won us $20,000? And how can we use this in 2023 to hopefully have similar results? So let's let Mason back in 2022 take this away, and hopefully I'm not too annoying. I pulled pick 4, and I was so excited about getting pick 4 because you're looking at pick 4 and you're going to have one of Jonathan Taylor, Christian McCaffrey, Justin Jefferson, Cooper Kupp, or Jamar Chase making it to you. I think there's a clear tier of 2 running backs and 3 wide receivers at the very beginning of fantasy drafts. So sitting at 4, I'm like, okay, hell yeah, let's grab Justin Jefferson. Maybe we get lucky and Cooper Kupp makes it to us. Well, that's not what happened. We are sitting there, see Jonathan Taylor go off the board at 1. That's normal. Justin Jefferson at 2. Oh, crap. There goes our guy we were planning on. Then Cooper Kupp at 3. So now all of a sudden, the players that are available, you have CMC, Jamar Chase, and the running back coming off a 20 touchdown season in Austin Eckler. And I will be the first person to say that if you ask me in a live stream, if I'm in a $5 draft, if I'm in a $10 draft, if I'm in a $25 draft, and I'm on the clock here, oh, it's easy. You go Christian McCaffrey without even thinking about it. But to sit here and roll the dice on that in a $500 draft, it truly is nerve-wracking, but you got to practice what you preach. We play fantasy football to win. We play fantasy football to get first place. If you're not first, you're last. 6th place does nothing for you. So I'm going to look at Christian McCaffrey. I'm going to head over to our 2022 fantasy football draft guide, which is what you should do every time you are on the clock and considering drafting a player. I'm going to hit Control F, then search CMC, and I'm going to see the fact that, dear God, Christian McCaffrey in 2019 averages 81% of his team's carries on a per game basis, has a target share close to 24% in almost 150 total yards per game. I'm going to look at the fact that the only running back since the year 2000 to score as many fantasy points as Christian McCaffrey in 2019 on a per game basis were Marshall Faulk, Priest Holmes, and LT. You take Christian McCaffrey. You nut up or shut up. We take CMC at 4, and I'm happy about it. Now, a big thing that I want to recap there is this was a risky pick at the time. Quote unquote risky. CMC had injury-riddled seasons leading up until this past year, and a lot of people thought you couldn't take the risk on a round 1 player like that, especially in a $500 league. But remember, in fantasy football, there's 1 winner, there are 11 losers. Similar to this season, when I was taking Saquon Barkley at the end of the 2nd round, when now I'm drafting Jonathan Taylor, Josh Jacobs in round 3, and admitting, yes, there's downside to that kind of selection. But if we are in one of these drafts, we need to be chasing this ceiling. We need to try to be that 1 winner, especially if you're in an underdog best ball tournament like this was, where you could turn $500 into $20,000. Or if you're in one of the larger field tournaments like Best Ball Mania on Underdog, where you could turn $25 into $3 million, which hopefully that's what we're doing this year on Underdog. But of course, if y'all want to draft with us, we're still drafting on Underdog every single day, just like last season. And it's best ball, so no time commitment at all during the year. That's how I drafted 700 teams and won a total of $150,000 last season. And if you sign up to Underdog with promo code FLOCK, you're going to get a 100% deposit match. You'll get our 2023 fantasy football rankings, a free trial to flockfantasy.com, and you can also check out all the player props over there on Underdog. Right now, my favorite player prop is going to be Jamar Chase plus 25 receiving yards versus Devontae Adams. But yeah, let's see what we did here in round 2. After that, you have Eckler, Dalvin, Diggs all off the board. And I was sitting there really jealous of team 8. I mean, team 8 here. Yeah, Jamar Chase at the 108. Can you imagine taking Jamar Chase in that fashion? And now, going into the 2nd round, looking into the horizon, I'm thinking, all right, well, we just took that risky pick with a ton of upside with Christian McCaffrey. Here's where we almost go into a little bit of defense mode. Maybe we just grab some guys that we know are going to be able to provide us consistent production. Maybe we grab an Aaron Jones, a DeAndre Swift, a Mark Andrews. But those guys go off the board. And we're looking at the combination of Saquon Barkley, Leonard Fournette, Nick Chubb, T. Higgins, Mike Williams. And I'm like, okay, well, we already have all the upside in the world with Christian McCaffrey. But how am I supposed to pass on Saquon Barkley here? And we look at Saquon Barkley going back to 2019, another running back that was close to 20% of his team's target share. For a wide receiver to be at 20% of his team's target share, that's great. You're a top 24 wide receiver, fantastic. For a running back to get there, it's unheard of. So yes, it's a risky start, but I don't see how I'm supposed to pass up on Christian McCaffrey, Saquon Barkley here. It's a $500 draft. It's scary, but we're playing for first. I'm not playing for 6th. Okay, let's hear that quote again. We're playing for first. We're not playing for 6th. We go ahead, we take another running back coming off an injury, but we take someone that we know has access to an elite level ceiling that can win us a serious amount of money. Just like what you should be doing this year, you should not be drafting scared. You should be going after those high ceiling options. We go around to the third round, and here we're hoping we have a wide receiver value. In my mind, I'm like, okay, give us Keenan Allen. I'd love to take Keenan Allen in the third, get Justin Herbert in the fourth, but we have Keenan Allen off the board at pick 25. T. Higgins goes 24. So instead, we're on the clock with A.J. Brown, Michael Pittman, Terry McLaurin, Josh Allen. And despite a ton of people on Twitter telling me to go with Josh Allen, I was worried about getting boxed out of the wide receiver position because you have to start 3 wide receivers on Underdog Fantasy, and it's best ball, so these guys usually slide up some. So I decided to take A.J. Brown at pick 28. Now, yes, A.J. Brown is in a very bad situation. I'll be the first person to admit it, but if we go ahead, search A.J. Brown in our 2022 Fantasy Football Draft Guide, you'll see that the only wide receivers to average a target share higher than 23% and have 2.7 yards per route run over the past 3 years have been A.J. Brown, who's going into his age 25 season, Devontae Adams, and Justin Jefferson. And we are getting that massive discount on the talent of A.J. Brown based on the bad situation. So I'll be the first person to admit that, of course, you don't want to be playing with Jalen Hurts if you're a wide receiver. Also, you have the target competition with Devonta Smith and Dallas Goedert. But if that wasn't the case, hell, A.J. Brown would be going where Devontae Adams is. Okay, so getting him at 28, I'm going to be completely fine with betting on talent yet again in round 3. Oh, okay, I understand it looks really bad. There's us saying that it was a bad situation with Jalen Hurts, but let's reiterate, everybody thought so, right? That's why A.J. Brown was going in round 3. That's why there was the uncertainty attached to his profile. And we identified, okay, this is an elite level player. Even if, including myself, the overall market perceives this to be a very bad situation this next year, we should take the swing on the player that has the elite level ceiling, despite possibly being a risky pick based off his perceived situation. Because maybe the situation is different. Maybe we're wrong. And hell yeah, of course we were wrong. Philadelphia ended up being one of the best offenses in the league. And then going all the way to round 4, I personally didn't exactly know what to expect. I thought that we would potentially be looking at a wide receiver, potentially be looking at an elite level quarterback, but Deontay Johnson fell to us at pick 45. And with Deontay Johnson, he's one of my most drafted players. Y'all know I said I've already done over 400 drafts on Underdog Fantasy. He is one of my most drafted guys. So it's a little nerve-wracking going through and adding him to our portfolio in a $500 draft, but I can't stop drafting him. He had a target share almost 27% in Pittsburgh last year with a quarterback that, as I've discussed time and time again, was atrocious. I know Trubisky's not going to be good. I know that Kenny Pickett is probably not going to be good in year 1. But at the same time, I can say, okay, Ben Roethlisberger was horrible. Ben Roethlisberger in his age 29 season had an adjusted yards per attempt of 6.2. The only veteran quarterbacks, the only non-rookie QBs to be worse than Ben Roethlisberger on an adjusted yards per pass standpoint last year, Andy Dalton, Jacoby Brissett, and Sam Darnold. That is how bad Big Ben was. Despite that, Deontay Johnson was the wide receiver 7 on a points per game basis. The year before, he was the wide receiver 19, despite missing about 3 games, getting pulled at halftime, either due to drops or injuries. Drops are no longer a problem with Deontay. I'm going to take the wide receiver on his rookie contract, coming off the wide receiver 7 finish, as a low-end wide receiver 2 in fantasy every day of the week. Give me Deontay Johnson here, pick 45. Thanks for nothing, Deontay Johnson. I thought we were making a smart pick there, chasing target volume. I thought the targets were going to stay. The targets did stay. He scored 0 touchdowns, didn't help us at all. And no, do not draft Deontay Johnson round 5 this next year. And one pick that I think we could go back and we could change would be our selection at 52. I decide to take David Montgomery. Now, with Montgomery here, this is a running back that is going to guarantee us a volume in Chicago. I do think that the Chicago Bears will be a very bad offense overall if we just look at PFF projecting them to be a bottom 5 offensive line this upcoming season. They have a defensive coordinator as their head coach. On top of it, y'all know I've never been a massive fan of Justin Fields, but while Montgomery's a running back I've never really drafted historically, last year he was going round 3. Round 5 is a fantastic price tag. I mean, if we just go through and look at the past 3 years for David Montgomery, you can see that a lot of these narratives are false. If we pull them up in our 2022 Fantasy Football Draft Guide, we can see that in 2020, David Montgomery was a mid-running back 1. He was the running back 6, only behind Kamara, Dalvin Cook, Derrick Henry, Aaron Jones, and James Robinson on a points per game basis. He had over 100 total yards a game. And that was in a horrible Chicago Bears situation. Remember who the quarterbacks were in 2020 for Chicago. This past year with Justin Fields, probably the worst season of his career. I'd imagine he only gets better going into year 2. David Montgomery was still the running back 15 on a points per game basis. If we look at Khalil Herbert, this is a running back that shouldn't be a threat. After Montgomery came back from injury, his carry log was 4-1-4-4-1-0-2-2-4. Montgomery's a workhorse. We're taking a workhorse running back on his rookie contract at pick 52. Yes, it's a horrible offense. Yeah, we should have just taken our guy, Josh Jacobs. No idea what we were doing. No, nonetheless, I don't think a horrible pick, right? I mean, we chased volume. Hey, kind of need another running back. It is what it is. I wasn't exactly sure what we should expect. Now, we got lucky that this pick was made before Julio Jones signed with Tampa. So right before our selection, Russell Gage goes at 68. We also have a couple of the other names at wide receiver specifically go before us that I thought were going to be in play. Like I thought we could come away with an Adam Thielen. I thought we could come away with Elijah Moore. We're looking for hybrid players that we believe to give us high floor and ceiling combinations because we already have such a high ceiling with CMC and Saquon Barkley. If they manage to stay healthy, this team's going to be dominating to an extent that we just need to make sure that we're average across the board. If we were average at our wide receiver 3 spot, we are going to be fine. But instead of getting an Adam Thielen, instead of getting an Elijah Moore, we have Amon-Ra St. Brown making it back to us. And with Amon-Ra St. Brown, I understand this is a wide receiver that I talked some crap on at the beginning of the offseason from a dynasty fantasy football perspective, but forgive me. Everything I said was pretty much right. We said that his volume at the end of the year was primarily based on the fact that there was no target competition at all in Detroit at the time. Swift was hurt. Hawkinson was hurt. Khalif Raymond was the next best wide receiver, and they would look to add competition in the offseason. They signed DJ Chark, and they drafted Jameson Williams. So those two additions have dramatically skewed the expectations for Amon-Ra St. Brown this upcoming season. He has red flags, but to look at the last 6 weeks of his rookie season, the last 6 weeks of his rookie year, he was an early declare as well, so he was a younger rookie. 12 targets, 10 receptions. 12 targets, 11 targets, 11 targets, 11 targets, 10 targets. A dominant end to his rookie year, where even if we have those red flags, hell, Jameson Williams isn't playing in the slot. DJ Chark's not playing in the slot. That's where we expect Amon-Ra St. Brown to be. So pick 69, I'm completely fine to take him. I think what we could have done if we were to change something with hindsight, of course, now that I know we could have had A.J. Dillon at pick 69, if you wanted to make an argument for us to go ahead and to take either Brandon Cooks or Lamar Jackson at 52 and then end up taking A.J. Dillon at 69, that would have been definitely a possibility. That would have been something that maybe is slightly better, but I didn't know you were going to have Dillon falling that far, or maybe our draft strategy would have been a little bit different. Can you imagine? We go Brandon Cooks and A.J. Dillon there instead of David Montgomery, Amon-Ra St. Brown. Sometimes it's better to be lucky than it is to be right. I mean, with St. Brown, I don't even want to sit here and say, oh yeah, we were so smart to take him. My thing is, how the hell was Russell Gage going ahead of him? Like, and I wasn't jumping up and down with excitement to get him at this price. When so funny that the fantasy football community was this low on Amon-Ra St. Brown. Obviously, hindsight's 2020, but still. But now coming back around at the beginning of the 7th round, this is another spot that it's very awkward. I mean, yes, maybe you can make the argument you want to go Trey Lance, a quarterback that we believe can be the quarterback 1 overall in fantasy with his rushing upside and situation this upcoming season. But I'm still trying to catch up on our wide receiver depth, considering the fact that through the first 5 rounds, we decided to draft 3 running backs, and we had Devontae Smith falling to us at pick 76. Now, we already had A.J. Brown in this roster, and I'm not a massive fan of deciding to go ahead and draft both pass catching options for the Philadelphia Eagles on a team where we don't have Jalen Hurts, because we know if both A.J. Brown and Devontae Smith were to smash, then we can assume that Jalen Hurts is probably a top, 3 quarterback in fantasy, given his rushing upside. So I am really trying to avoid that combination of players if I do not have Jalen Hurts on our roster. But come on, it's Devontae Smith, pick 76. This is a wide receiver that in college had over 1,800 receiving yards, 23 receiving touchdowns at Alabama. He put up one of the best collegiate wide receiver seasons of all time. I got to take the man here at 76. It's a fine value. We're going to go back-to-back second-year wide receivers. Now, this is something that I have changed. Now I'm actually very excited to stack wide receiver teammates, even if we don't have the quarterback. I think it does still stand true that maybe with the rushing quarterbacks, you're not as excited about doing it if you don't have that option. Maybe you're not as excited about pairing up, say, Rashad Bateman and Zay Flowers on the same team with no Lamar Jackson compared to with Lamar Jackson. But still, I'm sure y'all see me in the live stream every single night trying to pair up those wide receiver teammates, right? Because, hell, we were wrong. The entire market was wrong. Philadelphia was an elite level offense this past season, and both these guys smashed, and it didn't matter that we didn't have Jalen Hurts. And then going over to pick 93, we are going to take Brandon Ayuk, another wide receiver of value, in my opinion. It would have been beautiful. Oh my gosh. Y'all know my most drafted wide receiver in fantasy this year has been Michael Thomas because of the insane value that you're getting on. Okay, when the hell was this recorded? How was my most drafted wide receiver Michael Thomas? It was Waddle at the end of the time. I have no idea how early this was in the offseason. And we almost had him make it to us at pick 93. Now, he goes right before us. So sadly, I'm not able to get Michael Thomas, but just crazy value. I still can't believe we live in a world where Allen Lazard gets drafted before Michael Thomas. But regardless, Ayuk is a wide receiver that if you look at his points per game numbers last year, of course, that they were down, but you had very fluky usage with Deebo Samuel having 8 rushing touchdowns. And on top of that, if you look at the snap rate for Brandon Ayuk at the very beginning of last season, he was clearly in the doghouse with Kyle Shanahan. I don't know what he did, but once he started playing 90% of snaps, he went right back to what he was in his rookie year. And that was a dominant outside wide receiver for the San Francisco 49ers. I like the young guy. We needed more wide receiver depth. And then we continue to add in that wide receiver upside. We get Treylon Burks.
Yeah, I mean, with Ayuk, it's just same thing. Looking back at Devonta Smith, crazy to see that he's making it here to round 8. Like, if you look at underdog drafts now, what round 8 wide receivers look similar to Brandon Ayuk from this past season? Like, round 8 wide receivers this year, like, what? Elijah, I guess maybe Elijah Moore, you can make an argument. Hell, I guess Moore was good as a rookie, bad as a sophomore. Maybe we found the next Brandon Ayuk.
Pick 100. Treylon Burks is another guy that I'm going to continue to draft when we are getting a ridiculous discount because people are worried that the man has, guys, he accounted for over 40% of Arkansas's receiving yards on a per game basis last year as a junior in the SEC. The man accounted for 40% of Arkansas's receiving yards per game. Like, are we really worried about his conditioning? No, the man can put his team on his back. He profiles to be someone very similar to A.J. Brown, stepping into a situation where there should be volume available. I'm taking the discount with Treylon Burks at pick 100. But going back and looking through this draft, we need to be worried because quarterbacks are going early. You have Dak Prescott sneaking his way to pick 55. You have Russell Wilson going to pick 72 with the same team that decided to take Patrick Mahomes. So all of a sudden, we're on the lookout for quarterbacks. I'm sitting here regretting the fact that we didn't take Josh Allen in round 3, regretting the fact that we took A.J. Brown instead. But we got lucky. Thank you. We got so lucky with Aaron Rodgers falling to us at pick 117. With this Rodgers selection, I think that we were able to save our quarterback room in that we know Aaron Rodgers has week-to-week upside to be a top 5 quarterback. Now, no, he doesn't have the rushing production baked in as you would see with the Jalen Hurts, as you would see with the Trey Lance, as a Kyler Murray, as a Lamar Jackson. So he doesn't have the same overall quarterback 1 upside that you may find as those guys with their legs. But we are getting Aaron Rodgers 2 picks before Kirk Cousins. We are getting Aaron Rodgers 10 picks after Derek Carr, 20 picks after Matthew Stafford. So this is exactly in line where I think you can get excited about this Aaron Rodgers value.
Now, hindsight being 2020, what we should have just done is we should have taken Lamar Jackson instead of David Montgomery round 5 and then gone running back at this pick, right? I mean, nonetheless, obviously everything worked out perfectly. We won the tournament, won $20,000 with this. But I don't know what was the thought process here, waiting until round 10 to grab our first QB.
Now, this next selection I made was right before we had the report that Christian Watson's going to miss some time with an injury. So I was way more excited about it at the time, but we decided to take Christian Watson at pick 124. At the time, I thought it was an easy pick for another wide receiver that was dominant in college. If you look at the amount of his overall passing offense he accounted for his final season there, it was over 40%. A ridiculous dominator rating. Yes, he declares late, which is always a red flag, but this is a wide receiver that had to go back because his junior season, his team, due to COVID, played football in the spring. He was halfway through his collegiate football season when the NFL Combine was happening, when the NFL Draft was happening. So that's the reason, at least one of the reasons, Christian Watson is a much older rookie than usual. I think he is stepping into a hyper-efficient offense. If this team's going to be any good, Aaron Rodgers probably has to be good, and someone has to catch the ball from Aaron Rodgers. I like the upside of Watson. Before the injury, I was over the moon with this pick.
It's kind of funny because I think the team we won $100,000 on Underdog with as well, which we will be covering later in the offseason. So, of course, if you have not done so already, subscribe to the channel. But I think that had Christian Watson as well. Seemed like every high-stakes draft I was in last year, I was just grabbing Christian Watson at a discount.
It's whatever. Now, going down a little bit further, pick 141 is a selection I am very excited about. Someone that I wasn't drafting at the beginning of the offseason, but he has fallen a ton. Obviously, we need a tight end. We decide to go ahead and to grab Mike Gesicki, pick 141. Now, we almost lock ourselves into having to draft 3 tight ends in a best ball format whenever we decide to pass on that tier of guys that we had, probably ending about at Dalton Schultz, who went at pick 66. Once we don't take Kittle, we don't take Darren Waller, we're going to have to take 3 of these guys. But Gesicki is a tight end that, based on his athletic profile, I do think that he will have upside in this Miami Dolphins offense. He should be running a decent amount of routes. Now, of course, the issue is not going to be a ton of passing yards in Miami, and you also have Tyreek Hill, and you also have Jalen Waddle there. So it's a bad situation overall compared to the talent that he has, but that's why you're getting him at pick 141. And then afterwards, super easy selection. We go ahead, we take Robert Tonyan, someone that, yes, is probably going to miss all of training camp due to the injury that he suffered at the end of last season. But with Robert Tonyan here, this is a tight end that was the easiest fade of all time. Like, let's go over to our 2022 fantasy football draft guide, and let's pull up this Robert Tonyan profile. And if you were drafting Robert Tonyan in 2021, I'm sorry to break it to you. You were a fish. Okay? You were a fish. I'm sorry to say that. But you were drafting a player coming off a season where you had a 19% touchdown rate. So a 19% of the targets that went towards Robert Tonyan he scored a touchdown. That is the most unsustainable mark of all time. He was the tight end 6 that season, but his target share was at 10%. Like, no, you should not have been drafting Robert Tonyan last year whenever you're having to pay a premium on him.
How did we get by with these tight ends? We waited until this far in the draft to grab our first tight end, and we ended up coming away with nothing. Obviously, I can't sit here and cry about this team, but how did we win with these guys?
But now Robert Tonyan is cheaper in a much better situation for the same player. You have 30% of this team's target share and Devontae Adams walking out the door, their number 1 red zone weapon. This is the time. This is the year to draft Robert Tonyan. Of course, a big reason I decided to do it is because we have Aaron Rodgers on the same team. I mean, if I'm looking at my ranking, I have him as tight end 15. So it's not like I hate Robert Tonyan here in a vacuum, but I would definitely say you're more excited with Aaron Rodgers at pick 148. Then pick 165, we don't have anybody for the New Orleans Saints. Of course, I wish we had Michael Thomas fall to us a little bit early on, but we needed to draft 3 quarterbacks here in a best ball format once we decide to wait until we get Aaron Rodgers at 117. So Jameis Winston, 165, with all the weapons that he has, with Michael Thomas, with Chris Olave, with Jarvis Landry, with Alvin Kamara. Hard for me to pass on Jameis Winston and expect some.
This was a locker room pick, all right? Yeah, don't fault me for drafting Jameis. We were eating W's. All right, I needed someone in there in the clubhouse to lead this team, to have some fun, and that guy was Jameis.
Random spike weeks. And then we get Noah Fant, 172. I think if you're looking at the tight end position here, Noah Fant is the best player that stands out. And like I said, once we decide to wait in a best ball format, we are going to have to take Fant. We have to take that third tight end. And then looking at 2 more running backs to round out this roster, we get Darrell Williams at 189. Now, I was frantically checking Twitter. Just, oh my God, Darrell Williams. What happened to Darrell Williams? What happened to Darrell Williams? Trying to figure out if there was some news. Yes, there have been some reports that Benjamin looks good. Hell, he looked good at Arizona State. He's done nothing through the first 2 years of his NFL career. I think looking at Darrell Williams as a running back that probably is going to be in a committee, getting a small workload with James Conner being the main guy there. But James Conner does have that injury history, and if he were to go down, Darrell Williams is the starting running back in one of the best offenses in the NFL. Now,
can we point something out here real quick? If you look at rounds 13, 14, 15, 16, none of these guys were good. Like, let's look at rounds 15, 16. Paris Campbell, bust. Hayden Hurst, bust. Alec Pierce, bust. Noah Fant, bust. Hooper, bust. Fuller, bust. Robinson, bust. Pickens was fine. Brian Robinson was okay. Jamal Williams was a massive hit. But outside of that, you're looking at 24 guys getting drafted in rounds 15 and 16. Pretty much do nothing. So I do want to point that out, where you can be very confident of guys that you're taking at the very end of your drafts. And obviously on Underdog, we're going to go a lot deeper than your regular redraft format. But in your regular redraft format in particular, you should expect naturally that your last pick, your last few picks, to be honest, are going to be guys that you most likely cut at the beginning of the season. And you're just chasing upside because you're going to be working the waiver wire anyway. Obviously, Underdog a little different, but I do want to point out how bad all these picks are at the end.
Pick 196. I want to go ahead. I want to take another quarterback, hoping that we get Goff making it back to us. We could stack Goff with Amon-Ra St. Brown, of course, and Goff has so many damn weapons for this upcoming season. But instead, Goff goes at the pick before us. I want to grab a third quarterback. The advance rates here are going to be a little bit different. That in this $500 draft on Underdog, the top 4 teams advance to the playoffs rather than the usual top 2. And for that reason, I think it matters to raise your floor a little bit more than it would in, say, a Best Ball Mania draft or a Puppy draft or even in your regular 12-team league. So we decide to draft the third quarterback. We get Baker Mayfield. Baker Mayfield does correlate with Christian McCaffrey, so I'm definitely going to be fine with the pick.
I completely forgot about that. I know this is going to sound so dumb. I forgot that Baker Mayfield was at Carolina last year. Oh, that's hilarious.
And in the last round, I didn't know if you were going to be going with a running back or a wide receiver. I was going to let the rest of the draft room dictate where we went. But we had Jerick McKinnon fall to us at 213. I got to take McKinnon. If you look at the role that he played in the receiving game for Kansas City during that playoff stretch, Clyde Edwards-Helaire was healthy. Now, I love CEH at the end of the 8th round. Like, trust me, I'm drafting a lot of Clyde Edwards-Helaire as well. I'm drafting a decent amount of Rojo. I just think because of the uncertainty in Kansas City right now, you're getting a discount on all these guys because we don't know who the starter is. We don't know how the touches are going to break down. So there's uncertainty in the backfield, but where did the league-winning running backs come from last year? Backfields that had uncertainty in elite level offenses. We didn't know if it was going to be James Conner or Chase Edmonds, so they were being discounted. We didn't know if it was going to be Ronald Jones or Leonard Fournette, so they were being discounted. The same thing with these Kansas City Chiefs guys this offseason.
Yeah, so I would say the overall recap that we have with this draft and the lessons that we need to be taking away going into this next season
is don't be scared of going out there and chasing upside. Don't be scared of a player having some risk associated with them, because a lot of these picks that are seen as quote unquote safe picks going into the year, in reality, aren't that safe. So if you get the ability to take someone that you think can be a true league winner, even if there's a lot of downside associated with that profile, you have to go ahead. You have to swing for the fences. I mean, you have to nut up or shut up, like we said earlier in the video. But yeah, I mean, I'm happy we won 20,000 with it. We'll cover the team that we won 100,000 with. And if y'all are really enjoying this, we'll go through and we'll cover the Best Ball Mania team we won 10,000 with as well. But of course, all those drafts are on Underdog Fantasy, where we're drafting every single night on the live stream this year. So if you want to get in a draft with us, or if you want to go check out any of those player props, of course, you can still sign up to Underdog with the link in the comment section, the link in the description. Promo code FLOCK's going to get you a 100% deposit match up to $100. Plus, you'll also get our 2023 fantasy football rankings, as well as a free trial to flockfantasy.com with promo code FLOCK. But you can find that link down there in the comment section. But thank you again, ladies and gentlemen. Really do appreciate you, and really hope that I get to draft with you in the live stream tonight. And hopefully we can turn $25 into $3 million.